Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 1 o'clock, and this is Vicky Raven from Well Kids Cracking the Teenage Puzzle. You're very welcome here today. I'm glad to see everybody. I'm just going to have a look to see who's signing in. Okay, let's just get that. Okay, right, I'm just checking. Haha, here we go. Okay, so I've got everything set up perfectly now. So welcome to today's webinar, Get Your Teen Revising. Before we start, I just want to run through a bit of housekeeping. You'll see that there is a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. I can see who's coming into the webinar, and I can see your questions. If you want to ask a question or make a comment, you can just type it in the box at the bottom. I'm the only person that can see your comments, and I'll either answer your question live, or if it's a little bit more sensitive, then I'll type the answer in the box. But you can always contact me after the webinar is finished. So I've scheduled this webinar to last for around 50 minutes. So if you're still around then, I can answer some questions at the end as well if I don't manage to see them as I'm going through. So the things I'm going to cover today are why it's so hard for your teenager to revise. And actually looking out at the sunshine today, I think it's particularly difficult today. I'm also going to cover why the revision period is difficult for you as a parent. I'm going to give you the 3 keys to solving the teenage revision puzzle. I'm going to explain to you the right and wrong things to say to encourage and discourage revision. I'm going to give you a really simple way to express your concern, any concern that you have over revision, without causing an argument. And then I'm going to give you some practical tips to support your teenager. And because this is a really short webinar, I'm probably not going to be able to tell you everything you want to know or need to know. So towards the end of the 50 minutes, if it's okay with you and you're still here, I'm going to tell you how you can find out more about working with me and how I can support you a bit more. So, okay, so a little bit about me and why I'm working with parents of teenagers. So I've got a very clear memory from around the age of 10. Not very much before that, but from the age of 10, I've got some really clear memories. When I was 10, I remember being asked at an entrance interview for a school that I was trying to get into, whether I had any idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I confidently answered that I wanted to be in the Nolans. And it didn't even occur to me that they were a family band and I was not a Nolan, or indeed that I wasn't Irish. You know, that dream sort of persisted for a while. And then a few years later, Diana Spencer came on the scene, and I thought that it looked really lovely what she did, being a nanny, and that maybe I could do that kind of job. But because of the school that I went to, and actually it was the school that I told the headmistress at the interview that I wanted to be a Nolan, so that obviously didn't put her off that much. So when I said I wanted perhaps to be a nanny, I was told that because I was a clever girl, I should aim at something higher than that. So somewhere along the line, I thought that perhaps forensic psychology sounded interesting. So you can see that I had a few things that I wanted to do. They weren't really that related, but they were things that I was interested in. But the thing is that I had no definite plan, but lots of interest in a few areas. So in some ways, it was quite difficult for me to choose the subjects that I did at O-level and A-level, because I wasn't really that clear about what I wanted to do. So I tried to choose subjects that I thought would vaguely get me into the right kind of area. And at the beginning of the upper sixth, I applied to do a psychology degree. And I had chosen to do chemistry, maths and music A-levels, but I didn't actually enjoy doing my A-levels as much as I had wanted to. And I didn't get the A-level grades to go to do psychology in the university I wanted to. So I had another change of plan. And those of you that know me will know that I'm one of those people that have, you know, a million ideas every day. So at that point, I chose to do a teaching degree. And I loved that. I really, really loved doing that. I found it really, really interesting. The academic side of it, the research part of it, I found really, really interesting. And I actually really, really enjoyed being with children and teaching children. And I had really, really high hopes when I went into teaching. And to start with, I loved it. But I just felt very hemmed in by the education system. So after I had my children, I took the opportunity to reevaluate what I wanted to do, still having a million ideas a day. And I was lucky enough to be able to do some training in areas I really, really loved. So I got a qualification in homeopathy, I became an instructor in Tai Chi, and then I qualified to do massage and sports massage. And all of those things were great, but I wasn't particularly focused on helping any one particular type of person. And so I used to go to mind, body, spirit shows, health and beauty shows, that kind of thing. And I met the two founders of the Chrysalis Effect, and through them, I learned a huge amount of stuff about ME and chronic fatigue. And I do still work with ME recoverers and love that. But I think I have probably always had this real hankering for working with children and young people, and also with other adults that are influencers in children's lives. And that's you mainly as a parent, but also teachers, youth workers, support workers, that kind of things. So that's what I had this idea that I wanted to get into working in that kind of field. And then when my daughter became ill with post-viral fatigue, I had this big light bulb moment, and I realised that actually what I was called to do was to work with parents and their teenagers to prevent the huge amounts of anxiety and depression that I found out about when I was talking to those parents. And one of those areas is around school and revision. So today I'm here to talk to you about cracking the teenage revision puzzle, because that's very relevant at this time of the year. So why is it difficult for teenagers to revise? And why does it, this picture, I think, embodies, the struggle that you have with your teenagers trying to get them to revise. And it's the kind of situation that you dread, really, isn't it? So I'm going to just briefly look at the three main reasons why it's difficult for your teenager. Some of the general reasons are practical, such as they find it difficult to get out of bed in the morning, so the day is short. They're not very good at organising themselves. They're not very good at planning. And there are physiological reasons for that, which I do talk about on other training courses. But some of the reasons they find it very difficult to revise are internal. How does it feel for them? So one of the reasons is, I think, the pressure of expectation. Kids these days, they live with the weight of expectation throughout their whole school life. Even now in year 1, there is a phonics test. And whilst 5-year-olds may not understand the expectation of passing the test, it does set up for you and for them the whole pattern that school is all about passing a test. And indeed, our whole education system is built around a series of tests. So I'd encourage you to think about how your teen really feels about their own expectations of themselves and the external expectations that are placed upon them. So it's also very difficult because they're constantly told education, the point of education is to get good qualifications and to get a good job. Now, I'm not in any way saying that education is not important, but again, the pressures this places in the minds of teenagers is huge. If they're constantly told, you need to do better, otherwise you won't get a job. You know, how do they feel about this? So one of the other reasons, and what this all leads up to, is that they begin to feel overwhelmed and they begin to fear failure. And of course, you know, this can lead to a variety of behaviours. And in fact, last year, a parent approached me because her daughter was revising every minute of the day. She would get up early in the morning, start revising, and still be revising late into the night, you know, 10, 11 hours a day. And actually, some of you might think, well, what's wrong with that? You know, you might be praying for your teenager to do more. But actually, this girl made herself quite ill, anxious, unable to sleep. And sadly, she didn't do as well in her AS exams as she had wanted or been expected to do. So something somewhere along the line had gone wrong. And I would guess that this fear of failure, this being terrified of failure, almost, you know, incapacitated her. So, you know, overwhelm can lead to the attitude of, well, I just can't do it, so I may as well not bother. You know, if you expect to fail, why set yourself up for failure? Or I just don't know where to begin. Where do I start? If it's all that hard, where do I begin? And this isn't unusual. In fact, it's fairly typical for teenagers because the part of the brain that controls our ability to plan and organise, which we do need to be able to revise and to see a structure towards each exam, that's actually the last part of the brain. It's the frontal cortex and is the last part of the brain to fully develop. So teenagers are actually not hardwired to be able to plan and organise themselves. So, is this you trying to get your teenager to revise? Why is it stressful for you? Okay, you're not the one that has to sit there doing the revision. But what are the things that are subconsciously influencing your reaction? And I'm going to go through a few of those with you now. Okay, so as parents, we all have to go to parents' evening. You are the one that has to sit in front of the teachers at parents' evening, listening to what can sometimes or often feel like judgmental comments. You know, I mentioned at the beginning, I've been a teenager. Yes, I've obviously been a teenager. I've been a teacher, and I've had teenagers of my own. So I've been on both sides of that table. And as a teacher, you know, it's your job to try to get the best academically out of your students. You know, most teachers go into teaching, probably all of them go into teaching wanting the best for the children that they teach. And part of that is their academic standard. But of course, as a teacher, you're not emotionally engaged with each child as much as you as a parent. And as a parent, you just want to hear that your teenager is doing well and you have nothing to worry about. And ultimately, you want to be proud of your teenager. You want to walk away feeling, you know, they're doing a good job and you're doing a good job and it's all going really, really well. of course, what you hear is that there are no jobs out there for young people. We constantly see that on the news, that 50% of 18 to 25-year-olds are unemployed. So surely the best thing to do is get the best possible qualifications. And if your teenager's not revising, that's a real worry for you. I know that. So if your teenager is about to take public exams, GCSEs or AS levels or A2s, part of you, I'm sure, feels that this is what their whole school career has been building up to. This is the end of a period of time for them, and this is the test. Do they pass? Do they get good GCSE grades, AS grades, A2 grades, or don't they? And of course, you want to be proud of them. So something else that can influence how you react to your teenager is how your feelings about school come up for you. What was school like for you? Did you have a great time at school? Or when I know parents say to me sometimes, oh, when I go to parents' evening, I feel like a child, and I hated school. I feel intimidated by the smell, by the buildings, by the noise, just by sitting in front of a teacher. I feel like a child. So, what emotions and feelings does this whole revision period bring up for you? And is that something that you would like to address? Okay, so that's a little bit of background. So I'm going to now give you the 3 keys to solving the teenage revision puzzle. And these really this is the most important part of the webinar. And if you take nothing else away, this is what I want you to listen to. So write these down. So the 3 keys. So these are the 3 keys. So number 1 is to love and accept them unconditionally, listen to them, and understand them. And I hesitated to actually put this in the webinar, but I think this is a really, really important, really, really crucial part of what I teach. I really want to stress to you that whatever your teenager is doing, however they are behaving, always keep these 3 keys in mind when you're dealing with them. And I really, really believe the price of not doing this is to risk pushing your teenager away forever. And I do know people who feel that their parents did not love and accept them for who they were. And they don't have a great relationship with their parent, even though, they're in their 30s and 40s now. That has stayed with them. So I really want to stress this is the most important part. So the first key, to love them and accept them. As a human, one of our most basic needs is to be loved and accepted. It doesn't mean for you as a parent you have to love everything they do or that you have to accept poor behaviour. It just means love and accept them as a person separately from their behaviour. They are still the same child that you adored in the first few hours of their life, the same 5-year-old you applauded in the nativity. They are still that child in many ways. They might have become slightly awkward and they might have become completely unrecognisable to you, but they are still your child. And your job as a parent is to always have their best interests at heart. Now, I don't mean, when I say love and accept them, I don't mean you have to be passive and accept behaviour. You don't and that you are telling them because you love them. And always be their firm guidance. Okay, so the second key. So another one of our basic human needs is to be heard. And I hear from teenagers a lot that they get told what to do, but they're not listened to. And as adults, we might feel rightly that we are more experienced than the teens in our life, but we, as humans, we learn through experience much more than being told. And yes, you're the expert because you're their parent, but in many ways, your teenager needs to learn their own lessons. And that's tough. That is tough, but they do need to do that. So listen to them, explain to them what you think, and tell them that you're doing it because you love them. And, you know, the teenage period of our life is a very vulnerable time, and sometimes it can be quite scary. And teenagers are often uncertain about the decisions they have to make that they feel will shape the rest of their life, their entire life. And, you know, when they're being really stroppy and just disagreeable, you might not see that uncertainty because of all the bluff, but, you know, it is there. So when you're listening to them, build confidence with them, encourage them, you know, build trust while you listen to them, acknowledge their point of view. And also know that pushing them into something will make things worse for them and for you. Okay, so the last key is to understand them. So do you hear from your teenager, well, you just don't understand. You don't understand because of you didn't have a phone when you were a teenager. You didn't have the internet. You didn't, you know, X, Y, Z. You know, there's a million things that teenagers will throw at you. And, you know, that is a horrible situation. It's horrible for you and it's horrible for your teenager. And if you feel that you have no way to talk to them, it might be because you have no common ground. So there is something in trying to understand their situation and talking to them in a way that will help them to understand your position as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to the right and wrong things to say to encourage or discourage revision. So are there right or wrong things to say? So what I'm going to do is in this section is to go through some of the things that we say as parents that may be inadvertently putting your teenager off revising. Just got a message come up, so I'm going to have a look. Oh. Okay, I am recording, so I'm going to carry on. I'm just going to type a reply. Let's have a look at the settings. Okay, I can see that I'm live and I can see that I'm broadcasting and I can see I'm recording. So I'm not sure. I am going to carry on and then I'll get the recording out to you. Okay, so back to the right and wrong things to say. Let's have a look. Where do I get to? Okay, so yeah, the things that you inadvertently say that will put your teenager off. And this is actually something that I cover on the Cracking the Teenage Puzzle course. And I will teach you the things that you need to avoid saying. And some of them you can put into practice today as I go through them. But as we're only here for a short time, I can't go into much detail about how to change that. So, as I said before, towards the end, I'm going to go through a bit more of that. So, I've been sorry about this. I've sort of been thrown off my stride a little bit. 17, 18. Okay. So slide number 18. Okay, so this is the 5 steps, and the wrong and the right things to say actually come into, well, they come into all of the steps really. But the steps that I teach, these are the 5 steps. Just start having conversations, start to try and unravel, start to get into, you know, the real feelings around problems. Try to identify what the problem is, and then trying to put your teenager in a position where they can visualize their life without a problem, and then try to discuss how you make a decision to move you towards that no problem state. So knowing the right and wrong thing to say, in this case to encourage revision, I would say comes into all of them, but actually if you can't get it right in the first stage, just start, you're never going to get onto the other stages. You're going to just be back into that state of arguing. Okay, I'm just going to have a look at the questions again. It says I haven't started. Okay, I've had a couple of people that say they can't hear or see anything. It thinks I'm not broadcasting. I will just carry on through to the end, but if there is a problem, you will obviously get this recording. So I'm just going to carry on and get through to the end and see what happens. Okay, so knowing the right and wrong things to say. So if you've been having trouble with your teenagers, there's almost inevitably some kind of communication breakdown involved. And that doesn't mean it's anybody's fault. It's just that when relationships get tough, talking seems to get more difficult. So just getting started on talking might sound really obvious, but actually it might also sound as if it's the most difficult step. So if you've decided that's the thing that you need to do, I want to congratulate you and I want to offer you some support, because I think this is the most important bit. Getting the beginning right is really, really important. So let's have a think about what's going on in a teenager's head. So their experience of adult talks might be that the adult tells them what's going to happen without listening at all to their point of view. And they may feel that adults continuously tell them what's wrong, judge them, and that they don't feel understood. So I know that your intention is simply to help, encourage and support them, and that you don't understand why they don't understand you. And, you know, it's really interesting and important to understand that what you say is really clear to you, but your teenager may not hear what you intended. And that's because we all have filters that influence how we interpret the world, and they're all different. So it doesn't mean at all that they're not listening to you. It just means that they are interpreting what you've said in a different way to how you'd intended it to be heard. So what I want you to try to do when you talk to your teenager is try to put yourself in your teenager's head and notice how you feel. So I'm going to ask you to do that now. And I'm going to ask you a few questions and read out a few statements, and I want you to try to connect with how you feel. So if I say to you, how many times do I have to tell you you won't get a job if you don't get good exam results? So possibly you feel stupid because clearly I've told you again and again the same thing and you're just not getting it. So that's quite stupid. The next one I'm going to suggest to you, so I want you to listen to this. Do you know what? Getting drunk was a really stupid thing to do because now you're hungover and you can't do any revision. So again, how does it feel that I've called you stupid? Do you see why I've got so much grey hair? How do you feel to know that you are the one causing me stress and poor health? And the last one, if you carry on like this, you'll never get a job and you'll end up on the scrap heap with all the other losers. So really, do you believe I can predict the future that accurately? So what I want to challenge you to do today is to communicate differently. Notice when you feel exasperated, acknowledge that, but try to remain positive or at least neutral so that you encourage positive feeling in your teenager. So you might even want to try communicating in a different way other than talking. Why not try putting a post-it note with some encouraging words on your fridge in the morning, or sending your teenager a short text encouraging them or praising them? The only caveat I would give you to that is be careful not to bombard them because they might accuse you of stalking them and they might block you. So also try to understand your teenager's language. They might use different types of words to you, but don't be put off by that. It's just a generational thing and just try to accept it. Ask them, if you don't understand what they mean, ask them without judgment, what do you mean? So that's part of the first step in the 5 simple step process to cracking the teenage puzzle. And really getting to grips and really being good at this first step, I know, makes a huge difference to the conversations you have with your teenager about revision. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to explain to you how to express concern without causing an argument. And I'm going to give you some practical tips to support and how to support your teenager, and tips on how to talk to them during the revision period. So now I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Crack the Teenage Puzzle online course. And I know that some of you have already signed up and you're joining me at the beginning of May to do this online course at your computer. It's really, really easy to join. So I'm running this because I know that the problems you have with getting your teenager to revise can be part of a bigger problem. And that's generally how to talk to your teenager without arguing, and that you want to feel you're doing a great job. You want to know that you're doing a great job. And, you know, many of you are doing a great job. Probably most of you, all of you are doing a great job. It's just the way that you communicate to that to your teenager. So the group program is called Crack the Teenage Puzzle. And it's a course, an online course, where all you have to do is grab yourself a drink and turn up in front of your computer. In fact, you don't even have to turn up at a particular time. So don't be put off when you get the details if I say this week's webinar is going to be held at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you think, well, I can't do that, because you don't have to come live. You can listen to it whenever you like. And I've organised it like this because I know how pushed everyone is for time, and you can just listen to it at your computer whenever you like and not actually have to go out anywhere and spend more time getting somewhere. So through the course, my aim for you is to understand why parenting a teenager is just as important as parenting a child at any age. despite looking grown up and thinking they're grown up, teenagers actually need you just as much, but they need you in a different way. So I'm going to explain the ins and outs of why that's so that you will understand that. And that will make a huge difference if you do nothing else. Previously, I've mentioned that I have a simple system I can teach you so that you can have great conversations with your teens. It will stop you instantly hitting confrontation and also help you feel confident that you, as the parent, don't actually have to have the answer for everything. It will also help you to feel confident that you can support your teen in making their own decisions. I'm also going to teach you what to do when your teenager objects to your suggestions, and how you can express your love in a way that's acceptable to them, because they absolutely need to know that you love them unconditionally, but there are actually right ways and wrong ways to do that for a teenager. So during the course, I'm also going to open up Q&A sessions online, because I know that everybody's situation is unique and you will have different challenges. So everything I teach is directly applicable to everybody, but the situation you're in may just need a little bit of tweaking. So I'm going to offer you, in addition to the 6 teaching sessions, I'm going to offer 3 live Q&A sessions where you can come and get answers straight away. And there will also be a private closed Facebook where you can share with the rest of the group your successes, because there'll be lots of those, and you can ask questions about the challenges you're having. And I think, having a group Facebook group is absolutely brilliant. I belong to several private Facebook groups and get a huge amount of support from them. So by the end of the course, I know that you will feel proud, really proud, that you're dealing with your teenager in a much more positive and constructive way. And I know that teenagers can push your buttons, but the danger is, if you don't find a positive way through this teenage period, you do risk pushing your teenager away and losing them for the rest of your life. They might go and live. I have a friend that went to live halfway around the world because she had some problems with her parents. In fact, I've got 2 friends that have done that. So, it is, if you want to stay close to your teenagers, this is one of the ways that you can do it. So I'm going to tell you briefly how you can join. All of that, a 6-week program, 6 teaching sessions, and 3 live Q&A sessions, and the private Facebook group is just £95. Later in the year, I'm actually thinking that I'm going to sell this for £295 net, and I'm offering it for £95 today and for you, because I'll be honest, I've been thinking about running this for quite a while now, for several months, and for one reason or another, it's just not been the right time. But I spoke to a lady recently, and she really, really inspires me to get on and to write this and offer it to you and for you. I've just seen another message saying someone else hasn't got on. So yeah, going back to the course, this lady really, really inspired me, and I just really, really want to run it. So I'd really like you to join me. So I'm offering it to you for a kind of no-brainer price, really. So going on, I did say I would share with you how to express concern without causing an argument. So quite simply, all you have to do is to separate your teenager's behaviour from them as a person. So tell them, say, I'm saying this to you because I love you and I want the best for you. Say to them, I know it's really boring and I know it's really difficult to sit and revise, but you know, it's only for a short period of time. And then get them to picture how proud they'll feel knowing they've done their best and that they've made a giant step towards where they want to go and what they want to do. Never ever be tempted to call them lazy, unmotivated, or uncaring about their future. Any of those words, even if it's what you think. Okay, am I still on the right slide? Yep. So, your tips for supporting revision today. So I would really, really encourage you to ask your teenager for their exam dates and their timetable. I think all schools give their students timetables. Have a copy of that, put it on your fridge so that everybody knows what's going on. And then you can help them put together a revision timetable. So start with the revision schedule, know when they are, and work backwards, fitting in, you know, you might decide you want to fit in 8 sessions of each subject. Make yourself and your teenager a schedule in 45-minute slots. So explain to them 45-minute slots are great because they can really, really focus for that amount of time. And then they need to have a short break. Also, try to work in some complete downtime for them where they see their friends or they watch a bit of TV or they go out for a walk or they go out for a run or they go to the park. And also, finally, make sure that they're eating, drinking, lots of water and getting enough sleep. And I just want to leave you with something. I love this. Just because the past didn't turn out the way you wanted it to doesn't mean your future can't be better than you imagined. You know, teenage years don't have to be awful. You don't have to dread them. You don't have to weather the storm. You need to learn how to do it well. You know, the teenage years, I see teenage years as being a time that's full of possibility. And for you as a parent, it's a really exciting time to share with them. So thank you for giving up your time this lunchtime to be with me today. And I hope you feel you have learned something about how to get your teen revising. I'm going to stay around and have a look at why some of you aren't hearing it. So if you have a question, you can type it into the box. If you don't have any questions, if you'd like to join me on the Crack the Teenage Puzzle course at £95 for just this time, put a yes in the chat box, if you can see it, of course, or email me, vicky@well-kids.co.uk. And I'd just like to emphasise that this is going to be your only chance to get it at £95. And later in the year, it will be £295. So I'm just going to have a look for questions and see what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to just sign out now and you'll all receive this recording by email in a few hours' time, I hope. Okay, thanks very much. This has been Vicky from Well Kids Cracking the Teenage Puzzle. Bye.